The McKinsey Global Institute reports that 1 in 20 people in this room will lose or have their job disrupted because we are not skilled for tomorrow's workforce. Deloitte further comments on this. This problem will become 25% more worse in the next 10 years unless we do something about it. And that fact is very telling. It tells us that our current models are not doing a good job at upskilling our workforce. To build a better idea of this problem, Manny and I reached out to 20 HR experts in the Canberra scene and asked them what were their specific pain points at upskilling their workers. We came to 3 conclusions. They couldn't, because they didn't have the time to do so, they couldn't make it specific to their business function, and they didn't pay the costs. And so we looked at the competitive landscape across Canberra and tried to see where our competitors were falling short. And it became apparent that none of them truly fit the niche that companies needed to upskill their workers. And so that's where we wanted to step in. We wanted to design a time-efficient tool that could upskill workers specific to a business function and at a cost-effective rate. We're confident we can do that. Our model has been inspired by some of the top-performing schools in East Asia. It's already been validated by customers across hospitality, construction, accounting, and law. And furthermore, it's built from our customers' needs. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Gleeson Seeber's scenario-based learning. Let me show you what this looks like in 4 steps. The first step, we approach an individual in the company, someone who's skilled, let's say, in time management. This person, we give our database of scenarios to them, and they filter out which scenarios are relevant to their business. They then answer the scenarios. Their answers specify the correct answer on what to do in that scenario. We then give that to an employee. That employee goes to that scenario, and they're marked on how closely their answers align with that of their supervisors. Assuming their supervisors are skilled in this area, we mark them as responding correctly if they're responding in the same way as their supervisor would in a situation. If they consistently respond as their supervisor would, we think that they are skilled to act in those situations and give them a credential. What is different about what we are selling should be clear. We do not sell content, we are trying to sell ways of thinking about problems. And we think this is the kind of skilling that sticks. Speaking of developing about ways of thinking, we want our first customer segment to be the education industry because we think this is the best place to cultivate an educational tool. Furthermore, we already have leverage. We have networks in schools, and I've already been able to leverage my network to advance our product to the executive board of St. Ignatius College, Riverview. Further traction that we've been able to get is expressions of interest from a legal firm in Melbourne and a bookkeeping company in Canberra. With these companies, with this traction in our first year, we hope to secure 1 school per year, and that should generate $110,000 of revenue, provided that each of these companies is paying $2,000. This puts us to our vision, where we then want to expand to medium enterprise in our second year and develop more tools, specifically artificially intelligent tools. And so, let me tell you why we're the best team to execute this venture. I'm Gleeson of Gleeson Seeber. I have done award-winning research in qualitative areas. This is the perfect thing to execute a venture that relies on collecting scenarios from HR experts. I've got 3 years of education, experience in education, and Seeber is my second half. Seeber is in the perfect position to capture medium-sized enterprises due to his experience in the commercial and legal firms of Canberra and Sydney. And so, we're not alone. We've got 2 mentors with extensive domain experience in education. With these people by our side, we believe we can execute this venture. And what we need from you is our ask. $10,000. $9,000 will go to the development of our platform and customer validation, and the rest will go to our administration fees. And even if you don't give us that money, we've got a contingency plan. I'm in the CVE Venture Lab community, and I'll be pitching for $5,000 at the end of November. So that will just delay us by another 5 months if we can't get our full amount. So if you're ready to start thinking about investing, think about investing in Gleeson and Seeber. Thank you.
Do you prefer to go by Gleeson or Elvis?
Elvis is fine. Yeah.
Elvis has entered the
Branding.
building.
Yeah.
Congratulations, that was a really good pitch, very confident and well delivered. But I want to know, can you use artificial intelligence to find clients who need artificial intelligence training?
Okay, so what we're pitching for is the scenario-based learning. That aspect doesn't need artificial intelligence because we saw ourselves as lacking the technical expertise to execute that at this stage in the venture. The reason we wanted to do that a year on is because then we're generating revenue and actually have funds to hire people and build some more technical expertise. Yeah.
I agree, well done, good presentation. Now, I am an employer, and this is one of those issues we deal with all the time. So I've got a couple of questions. So firstly, when you spoke to employees, what level of employee were they talking about? Was it entry level or someone who was much more mature and been in the workforce for some time?
Yeah, so we kind of found value in two areas. In terms of onboarding, this kind of alignment of answers between like a junior employee and a senior employee helped onboarding. So that was the value we saw there. For more senior people, senior members of a firm, we found there was one level of value in just making sure that the firm was responding coherently and consistently across its levels of governance. So this was a good way to do that. And I think with the content, we aim to build our modules using a theory called grounded theory. And that means we actually take the scenarios and build our kind of branches and learning outcomes based on these scenarios. And we think there will be different levels. So if there's a more senior person who needs more senior upskilling, there will be more difficult kind of learning and scenarios to go through.
So following on with that, so I actually prize independent judgment and independent consideration and independent thought. So when you're assessing them compared to what their supervisor wants, are you actually just finding a clone of themselves, or are you giving them some scope to actually find someone who thinks independently?
Yeah, so what we aim to do in our long-term plan is once we're selling to enough business, take the kind of big data from how each person is answering scenarios and develop a kind of best practice for which you could reference people off. Yeah.
Thank you. Well done on the presentation. I must say I love this as a concept, and I think it's uniquely, the philosophy is unique for use by artificial intelligence. It's the right thing to do, but I think it can fail on your go-to-market. So why are you starting in schools? Because I'm not buying it that it's the best environment because they're already studying. I think you should find a customer that has the biggest pain you described on your first slide, and is also has the biggest capability to pay. And it may not be schools, and it may not even be the small enterprises that are now touching some of the competitions you showed.
Yes.
So this is more as a feedback. I think you should look for customers where you can uniquely pitch this. But my question is, have you thought of building the scenarios by the customers? So the customers are actually conversing with your engine, and they are building the scenarios and the answers, and you basically do nothing.
No, so we kind of intended to, because of my qualitative research skills, I've done a lot of work with interviewing people before. That would kind of be my task to make an initial population of the kind of scenarios available. I think co-creation is a really great idea, and one of the reasons we did want to go into schools, because you had people who were skilled educators kind of contributing to that discourse. But yeah, that's our kind of plan in terms of that.
If I can just pretty much agree with what Peter said, we've been working in schools for 10 years. It is really hard. They are the most difficult customer you're going to find. So you might want to think about where your niche should be as opposed to schools. It's just they don't have the ability to actually make the spending decisions. That's part of the problem.
In my 37 seconds, tell me about your competitors, your understanding of where you fit in a broader competitive market for this product.
Do you want to take this one?
Of course. So, as we showed in the sort of three-channel chart over here, the idea is that you have sort of a trade-off in the traditional competitor market between sort of time-saving, relevant to business, and access pricing. The issue is None of these solutions are particularly scalable. So for example, Kaplan, which offers the most comprehensive solution, is remarkably rigid in the way it approaches it. So it's about managing the trade-offs. That was the idea.